Okay, this is a introduction to scatterplot video. We're just gonna go through what a scatterplot is and just talk about some key features and like an overview. Okay, so we're gonna start with a question that we might wanna know an answer to. So you just decided, hey, do you think there's a relationship between the number of children in a family and the number of pets that they have? So you can ask a question, collect data, and create a scatterplot to help you visualize the information. Okay, so I'm thinking, I'm going house to house and I'm thinking, how many people under the age of 18 live in your house? And how many pets do you have? And we'll see what happens. So first, I'm going to collect my data in a table of values. So we call this a table of values here. And I'm going to collect data on two variables. So my first variable is number of children. And that's something called my independent variable. So I'm going to write it first. Number of children. And then the other variable is number of pets. And that's called my dependent variable. So number of pets. And then I'm just gonna go and ask different families to answer my question. Okay, so let's say I got some information and here's what I found out. I found out there was a family that had 3 children and they had 1 pet. I found another family that had 4 children and they had 2 pets. I found a family that had 2 children and they had no pets. I found another family that had 2 children and they had 1 pet. Found another family that had no children and they had 4 pets. Then I found another family that had 1 child and they had 1 pet. And let's just stop there. So we would probably collect way more data than that. And then we would put it in a scatter plot. It's kind of hard to look at the pattern and see any trends that pop out at us in a table. Much nicer to visualize in a scatter plot. Okay, so to create our scatter plot, the first thing we do is we label our axes. So number of children, I was saying, is called the independent variable. So that's going to go on the bottom, on the horizontal axis, which you may have heard called the x-axis. So that's number of children. And remember, I called that the independent variable. It's independent. It's just happening. Independent. Oh, I'm just like talking and writing and I can't spell. So we call that the independent variable. So that's just something, like they have a certain number of kids in their family. That's just the way it is. And I'm calling number of pets the dependent variable because I'm trying to see if the number of pets you have depends on how many children are in your family. I'm just trying to see if that's the case. So number of pets, and I'm calling that the dependent variable. So the independent variable is always written in the table on the left side, and then it goes on the horizontal axis on our graph. Okay, then next step, we need to create a scale. So we want a scale that starts at 0 right on the axis, and then it goes up by equal increments. So I look at my data and I see number of children's ranging from 0 to the highest is 4. So I'm gonna try to space it out and get all the way to 4. So maybe I'll skip 3 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4. Because I don't want all of my graph, all of my points, all of my data to be like just in this teeny corner. I'm gonna try to utilize the whole space. So I really spaced out my numbers. Then number of pets, I can see that also goes from 0 to 4. So I think I'll just use the same. I'll start at 0, 2, 3, 4. And I'll just go up by ones, and I'll skip some lines just to space it out. So you really want to make sure these intervals here are equal distance apart, right? Or else that's gonna make your results not good looking. And you want to make sure your scale is going up by equal amounts. So mine are going up by 1s, so that's good. All right, so we got that. Our next step would be to plot the points. And more on that later, but for now, we'll just plot them. So if I have 3 children, I have 1 pet. It says 1 family. So I'll plot that point. If I have 4 children, I have 2 pets. 4 children, 2 pets. Plot that. If I have 2 children, I have no pets. I have 2 children and no pets. Then another family has 2 children and 1 pet. Then somebody has no children and 4 pets. And somebody else has 1 child and 1 pet. So there's the data I collected. I only collected it from 6 different families, so that's not a lot of data. So based on where all these points are on my graph, honestly, I don't see a trend. Like I don't see, you know, I don't see any like trend emerging here. It seems like the 2 variables maybe are unrelated. So then the next step would be, if we saw a trend, we could add a trend line or a line of best fit to our data to just kind of show how the relationship goes. But if I don't see one, then I don't add a line. I just leave the points like this. And we tend to describe the relationship between these 2 variables. We use the word correlation to describe them, to describe how they're related. So in this case, I would say there's no correlation. I don't think so. It doesn't look like there's any kind of correlation between number of children and number of pets. Okay, so there could be though. So if I made a graph and I looked at children's age and height, for example, so let's say I graphed somebody's age and somebody's height, I would say the overall trend would be as you get older, you do seem to get taller for a bit. That ends eventually. But that's definitely some kind of relationship. So if I see the points going in a certain direction or a pattern is forming, I can add a line. And I call that line a line of best fit. We're going to talk about that more later. And I'm able to describe this correlation as positive correlation. And positive correlation means that as one variable increases, so does the other. So as you get older, you get taller. As your age increases, your height increases. That's what positive correlation is. Negative correlation, let's say I use the same example in children. So we have age, and maybe we look at hours of sleep. This might not be the best example, but when you're really little, I don't know if I'd count babies, but maybe total hours of sleep. You seem to get a lot more sleep, right? Babies are sleeping 14, 16 hours a day. And then as you get a little bit older, you probably sleep a little bit less, right? So maybe there's some kind of negative, that's called a negative correlation. So you would describe this as negative correlation. Negative correlation. So as one variable increases, so as age increases, as you get older, hours of sleep decreases. So negative is saying that as one variable increases, the other variable decreases. And that is the end of our intro to scatterplots.